Everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this beautiful sales analysis dashboard. So we'll be using some cool features of Power BI like bookmarks. We'll also use some new features like the card visuals and their reference labels, including the details. We utilize different visualizations like dot plots, waterfall charts, and even custom visuals to create this report. And the most important thing is that the data set you need for this report is right there in your Power BI desktop, so you don't have to click on any link to download any data sets because it is right here as a sample data set for us to use. So let's get started. So right now, once I launch my Power BI, right on this screen where you see import data from Excel, import data from SQL Server, just come over to where you have try a sample semantic model. As you all know, Power BI renamed data sets to semantic model. So I'm just going to click on try a sample semantic model. After clicking on that, this dialog box is going to show, and I'll just click to load sample data. So the sample data is going to show on this navigator dialog box. I can click on any of this. So the name of the table is financials, and once I click, you can see the data set on this particular preview. Then I can just go ahead and load this data set. So the data set has been loaded into my Power BI desktop, and if I click to open this data, you can see all the columns in this data set. Then I can go to the table view or data view. So I'm going to click on this. Once I click on it, you can see a view of this particular table. So here you can actually come and just explore to know what this data set contains. So right now we see that there are segments, countries, products, and of course there are also other numerical values like the units sold, the sales, the cost of goods, and even the profit. You can see in this data set, because it's a sample data set from Power BI, it has already been prepared. So they've added month number, month name, and year, and even date columns to this data set. You can open this data set up in your Power Query and perform some other transformations that you think you want to add to it. But for now, we're just going to, for this particular project, we'll use this data set as it is. So I'll just go back to my reports view. Right on the report view, in order for us to start, the first thing I'm going to do is to import a background. So I've created a background already in PowerPoint. If you don't know how to do it, just check out this card that is showing here. I have a well-detailed video where I showed how to create backgrounds in PowerPoint. So first off, I'll just come and click on my format pane. So under my format pane, I'll click on the canvas background and click to browse. Once I click to browse, I'm just going to choose the background from the location. Then I'll click to open it. And once I open it, my background has been added. So anytime I'm going to change the image fit to fit, and I'm going to turn off the transparency, reduce it to 0. So anytime you import a background and you see that your canvas is still showing the plain white color, you might have to check your transparency because that might be the issue. Okay, so I've imported this background right now, and I'm just going to check my settings to make sure that it is okay. So right now I want a custom setting. I want the height of this report to be 1220 pixel. Then the width should be 1840. So this is going to be the height of this particular report. After doing this, the first thing we're going to do is to set the title for this report. So we're going to do everything accordingly. We'll do it step by step. Okay, when we finish one step, we'll go over to the next. So I'm going to click on insert. And once I click on insert, I'll come over to text box because I want to insert a text box. So right on this text box here, I'm just going to increase the font size. Let me increase it to 36. If it's not okay, I can actually increase it more. I'm going to make it bold, and I'm just going to type sales analysis. So after typing that, I'll select this and change the font color to white. I'm changing the font color to white because I'll come over here and turn off the background. And remember, the upper part of this, our canvas background, is actually colored, so we need the text to be visible. So I'm just going to readjust this text I'll bring it down to this point, and that is it. So I'll quickly copy this particular text. I'll copy and paste it because I need to type another text. So what I'm typing is just going to be a summary of what this report is all about. I can quickly, so here I'll quickly change the font size. Let's make it 18, and I want to italicize it. I'll go over to the font color and turn it to white. Then I'll just type something. I might just skip this point because I'm just trying to type a little summary. Now that I'm done typing, this is what this text is just saying that this report shows a summary of the sales and financial performance of ABC Limited from September 2013 to December 2014. ABC Limited is a fictitious company. Remember, this is a sample data set that we are using. But this data set is dated from September 2013 to December 2014. Okay, so that's just for the brief summary for that particular text. The next thing I'm going to do is to insert a card visual. So we're going to use a new card visual. A new card visual gives us a lot of flexibility and options to change anything that we want to do to change compared to the old card visual. So I'm just going to click on the new card visual, and once I click on it, I'll just bring it up to this point. So I'll go ahead and add the different columns that I want to include in this card visual. So first off, I can add the sales. I can also add the profits. No, I'm not going to add the profits. I'm going to add cost of goods sold. I'm going to add units sold, and the last thing I'm going to add is the profit margin. So since we don't have a profit margin column here, what I'm going to do is to create a measure for the profit margin. So I'm going to create it right away. So we add it to this card and align it properly in this report. So what I'm going to do, in order to create a measure for profit margin, I want my data to be organized. So I'll have to create a table first. I'll click on Home tab, go back to Home tab and click on Enter Data. So I'm going to change the name of this table. I'll call it Metrics. And I'll load the table. Once I load this table, you can see the table over here in my data pane. So I'm creating this table because I want all my measures to be organized in this table. I don't want them to cluster in the financials table. So I'm going to click on the metrics table because that is where I want to create the measure. I can quickly come here and click on new measure. So for my new measure, I'm just going to call it profit margin. So it's a simple DAX formula. A lot of people know how to do it. So I'm just going to type my divide function, and I'm going to use sum. Since I have not created a measure for the profit and sales, I only use the values directly from the column. So I'm going to use the sum function to sum the numerator and the denominator, which is the argument for this divide function. So I'm going to use sum, and it's going to be profit. I'll close the brackets, put a comma. Then I'll also still use the sum function for the sales. I'll close a bracket, put a comma, and put an alternate result, which is 0, and close the bracket. Once I'm done with that, I'm just going to press enter. And you can see our profit margin measure has been created and added to the matrix table. So right on this profit margin, I'll just come at once and click on percentage because I want to format it as percentage. Then I'm going to give it a decimal number of 0. I don't want it to have decimal. So I'll just type 0, and that is it. So I'll click back on my card visual and then click on profit margin to add it. So right now, the profit margin has been added, but it has gone down to the next row of this particular card visual. So in order to bring it up to the first row, I'm going to click on layout. So layout, they have different arrangement. You can choose a single column, single row, or grid. So I want a single row, but I want the max card shown to be 4. So I'm just going to toggle it, and it will add the profit margin to the first row. This is how I want it to look like. So I'll quickly just adjust this a little bit. Just readjust this. So right on this size and style, I'll click on it, turn off the background. Once I turn off the background, for the call out values, I can decide to reduce this to, let's say, 35. I'll reduce that to 35, and then I'll scroll down and align it to the center. Then I'll scroll down to the label and change the label. Let's say I'll just give the label 12. Okay, the label is already 12. Let's leave it at that, but I'm going to make it a little bit bold. Okay, so right now these are the labels. So I'll quickly come here to rename these columns. To rename these columns, I'll just change this to total sales. Then I'll rename this to cost of goods sold. I'm also going to quickly rename this to units sold. And of course, the other one is profit margin, so that is okay. So the next thing we are going to add to this is our reference labels. In order to add our reference label, remember this card visual is still selected. So I'll just go over to reference labels, click on it, and then scroll down. So if you see that the reference label right now, all these options are being disabled. So reference label is that you have to select a particular card that you want to add a label to. So right now I want to apply this reference label to our total sales, and I'm going to click our total sales. So after clicking on total sales, it says that we should add data, but right now we don't have any data to add because the data I want to add in my reference label is month over month and year over year. So let's quickly go and create measures for that. So since we are dealing with our KPIs for now, we'll just create all the measures that we need to use in our reference label and add to it before we go ahead to start creating other visualizations that answers the basic data questions. So I'll just come over to, I'll just click on matrix, and I'll use quick measure for this one. So under quick measure, I'm going to click here and then scroll to where I have month over month change. So under month over month change, I'll drag my cells to this field well, and for the dates, I'm going to drag this and then I'll click to add. So my sales month over month has been added, and I now have that measure right there. So if you look at my matrix here, you can see my sales month over month. I'm going to quickly create another one for year over year change. So this is what I'm going to do. Year over year change. It's going to be sum of years. So I've selected year over year change. The best value is still sales, and the dates column is still the date column we want to use. So I'm quickly going to add another measure to this. So you see that this measure has changed to year over year because it is year that is being used to calculate for this particular measure. And if you look at my matrix, I have year over year change right now. So what I'll quickly do, let me turn off this pane. Let me collapse that pane. I'll just select this month over month, and of course it's already in percentage, and the year 2 is already in percentage. So what I can quickly do is to come to my model view. In my model view, I want to create a folder for them. Remember, we have 4 card visuals there. So we are going to create month over month and year over year for all those different variables. So what I'm going to do after creating them, I'll have to create folders for them so that they will look more organized. So right now I'm just going to select these 2 and create under this display folder. I'm going to enter a folder name. I might just type sales KPIs. So I'll just type sales KPIs and press enter. So you see that a folder has been created for them. After creating these folders, I'm just going to select these 2 measures, and I'm going to change the formatting from percentage to dynamic. So I'm going to select dynamic formatting. So after changing it to dynamic formatting, it's supposed to show right there. Let me select one, and let me just go and select dynamic because I'm expecting, okay. Let me click on edit. So right here on this edit, I'm just going to add a plus sign to this first symbol. So this dynamic is just going to allow these values to show with a plus sign if it is a positive value, and it will show with a minus sign if it is a negative value. So I'm going to do that and press enter. And I should have selected both of them, but Then again, let me just click edit and do the same thing for this particular value and press enter. After doing that, I'll just quickly come back to my report view. In order to add the reference label, this card visual is still selected. So I'll come over to my reference labels here, and total sales is what I want to add reference labels to. So I'm going to click on add data. I'll open up the matrix table, open up the sales KPIs folder, and the first reference label is sales month over month. And I'm going to add the second one. I'm going to add the second one, and the second one is going to be sales year over year. So you can see that this figures has plus sign added to it because it is not a negative value. Okay, so that is how to add reference label, and we can do some other editing to it. So I can just quickly come and for this field name, so you see it's showing sales year over year, and this is not what I wanted to show. I wanted to show another name. So if that's what you want to leave in your reference label, that's fine. But if you want to change it to a custom name, just come over to where you have field name and then change to custom. Once you select custom name, it gives you an option to change maybe year over year. So I'm just going to type this year over year, and that's that. But if you want to change for, you can't change for all of them. You have to change for a particular reference label. So because all of them cannot have the same name. So I'm just going to click on sales month over month, and I want to give it a custom name. I'll also change this. I'll say M over M. That's month over month. The next thing I can quickly do is to give it some layout, but you see that this is not selected. So this means that these particular options, you need to apply to all the labels. So we'll just come over to reference labels and select all. So once you select all and scroll down, you see that options are being enabled. So under the layout, we have rows, and I want to change the style to tabular. So if I change it to tabular, you can see that it has shifted a little bit, and it is a row arrangement. If you want it to show in columns, this is how it's going to show in columns. So you can choose any particular style you prefer. So after doing that, let me change it back to rows. After changing it back to rows, for the background, I can turn off the background. I don't want the background. Then for the divider, I'm going to just ignore this padding. Right now, you see that the divider is right by the border of this card. So if I click to ignore padding, this is what shows for this particular divider. So for the values, I can decide to just increase it a little. Let's increase it to 14. Let's see what the font 14 will give us. Okay, so that's fine. So that's the font size for that particular value, and you can add any other thing that you wish to add. You can even add conditional formatting to it, but right now I'll just go ahead and create the other measures, the month over month, year over year measures for all these particular visuals. I'm going to skip this part because it's basically the same thing that we are going to create. So what I will do is just to go ahead and create them. So right now I've created all these measures for month over month and year over year. Remember, it's just the same thing that I did for the total sales. So I've also added them to different folders. So each of them have their own folder. Now we can go ahead and add them to our reference labels. So right now I'm just going to click on this particular card visual again. I will go back to reference labels. Then I'll click for cost of goods. For cost of goods, I'm going to just add the matrix here. So I'll add month over month for the first one, and for the second one I'm just going to I'll do similar thing, so year over year. So you can see that the labels have changed. Okay, I can just go ahead and keep selecting for the other ones as well. For units sold, I'm just going to add labels to it. So we'll go over to unit sold folder and select it. Then the second data, I'll go to unit sold folder and select year over year change. Then for the profit margin, I'm just going to select the series profit margin right on my format pane, and then I'll click to add data. Then I'll click, so these are the profit KPIs. I'm going to add profit margin, the first one. Then the second one, I'm going to add the year-over-year change. So I'm just going to add this, and that's it for the profit margin year-over-year change. So really this is how it is. So you can just go ahead and change the name of all of this just like we did for the other one. So let me quickly do for cost of goods, then we move over to the next visualization. So if I come to cost of goods sold, I'm going to select individual labels. Remember, if all the labels are selected, you can't change the name to custom name. It's going to use the field name. So maybe when you are creating your measures, you can set the name the way you want it to. So you don't have to take time to start renaming all of this. So if I set it to custom name for month over month, this is what is going to show, and that's it. So I'll just change for year over year change as well. I'll change it to custom and just change it right here. So if you change it, you'll see that it has changed the names here. So you can apply similar things to unit sold and profit margin. So right now I'm just going to scroll down to this card. I'll scroll down to this card and give it another shape. So the shape I want is rounded rectangle, and I'm just going to change this to, let's say, 9 pixel. So that should be it, and it's pretty much okay. So this is how our card visual should look like. You can decide to change any other thing that you want to change in this particular card visual. So let's go over to the next visual that we need to create. So before we create the next visual, I'm just going to insert a shape. I'm going to insert a rectangle shape, and this is the shape. So I'm going to drag it down here. So I'll just drag it down to this point. Okay, so I can just bring up this card visual a little bit. Yes, so I can also drag this up a little and just bring it down. So for the shape style, I'll just go and change the fill color. So the fill color is going to be white. I'm going to remove the borders. I don't like borders in most of my shapes. So I'm going to remove the borders, and this is how it should look like. I think it still has another border, either the visual border. So let's check. Okay, the visual border is off. Okay, everything is turned off, and that's fine. But I can just make it a rounded rectangle. I can make this, let's say, 2%. Let's see what 2% will give us. Okay, 2% is good. So let's go ahead to create the other, the first visual. The other visual we want to create is a dot plot. We have scatter plot as a visual in Power BI. Scatter plot helps you to check relationship between two numerical variables. Okay, but for dot plot now, dot plot just enhance the capabilities of scatter plot by helping us add a category to our horizontal axis. So this is how we are going to format this as a dot plot. So I'm just going to click on this scatter chart. Once I click on it, I'm going to drag down. I'll just drag it down to this point and readjust it. So this is what it should give us. So the first thing I'm going to do for my x-axis, I'm going to drag in product. So I'm just going to close this metrics table. I'm going to drag this product to the x-axis well. And for the y-axis, I'm just going to drag in the sales. I'll drag in sales to my y-axis. And for the size, I'm going to drag in units sold for this size. So this is what it looks like at this point. After then, I'll just come over to this format and change this marker. So there are different shapes of markers, and I want to change it to any other shape. So I want to change it to this shape, and that is the shape of my markers. I can also decide to change the size of this markers to, let's say, 15. So that is the size, and I can turn on all the colors. So right now all of them have the same color, but I can just show all colors. So showing all colors is just going to, it's supposed to show us different colors, but you can now decide to change to whatever color you have within your color palette. So let's just quickly change this to give them some slight difference. Yes, so I'm just going to change this, and okay, I'll come over to this point and we'll change it to something else. Let me change this to this blue color and change this amarilla to something else. So let's just give it this color. So basically what this is showing us the sum of sales including the units sold by each product. So if you overrun it, the automated tooltip from Power BI is going to show you the product, it's going to show you the sum of sales, and of course the units sold for that particular product. So right now we can see that Paseo, this particular product, has the highest sum of sales including with the sum of units sold. You can also format this particular visual by adding a reference line to it. So this reference line is just going to give you some more information about this visual. So let's say we want to add a line, and the line type that we want to add is an average line. So we can add an average line to that. So for that average line, I'm going to turn on the label. So the label should be at the left position, and this is the data value. So we want the data value to show at the label. So right on this data label, you can also change the position if you want it to be on the left or the right. You can decide to add decimal points to this and also display units to this particular data value. So we're just going to turn that off. Okay. So that is it for our first chart, and before we go ahead to create another chart, I'll just quickly change the title. So under this title, you can say sales and units sold by product. Sales and units sold by product. So that is how it should be. And there's something I'm also seeing here. So you can see that Paseo has over 33 million, and this particular axis stops at 30 million and it's starting from 15. Always make sure that your axis starts from 0 to maybe the maximum value, so you'll be able to get a proper insight for that particular visual. So I'll just go over to my y-axis right now, and we're going to change this minimum range to 0, and the maximum I can just give it 40 million. So I'll add other zeros to it. So of course you've seen that if it's starting from 0, you have a better clue or insights to how these products are performing. So that is it for the first visual. The next one we're going to create now is the donut chart. So we're going to use this donut chart to actually represent our segments and cells. So I'm going to click on the donut chart and I'm going to bring it right down here. I'll drag this donut chart to this point. I'm going to add the segments. So the segments will go to the legend and the cells will go to the values. So this is how our donut chart should show. And for the slices, so for the detail labels, I don't want the detail labels to show. So I'm going to turn it off. And for the slices, I can change the color to any other color I want to change it to. I just want to change those colors. These are the slices, how I want them to look like. And for these slices, I can also scroll down to it to actually reduce the inner radius. So I can reduce this inner radius a little bit. So if I separate it, you can see the inner radius has actually increased rather. I can also add a card visual to this particular chart here. So this card visual, I want to filter it such that it shows the highest segments by cell. I'm just quickly going to click and select the card visual. So this card visual, I'll bring it down here so I can quickly format it. I'm just going to place it right on this visual. So I'll put it right here, and then I'm going to include the cells for that card visual. So that's the cells for the card visual. The callout value, I can make it 30. Make the card visual 30. Then after then, I can just turn off the category label. After turning off the category label, so the color value is still large. Let me make it 25. So that is it for the card visual. And right now for this decimal point, I don't want it to have decimal places, so I'm just going to change it. In order for us to filter this card, so I'll just bring the segment to this filter. So I'm just going to drag segments to this particular filter here, and I'm going to select the top end filter. So for this top end, I want the top one, and I'm going to drag cells over to this data field here, and I'm going to apply filter. Once I apply, you see that it is showing for only the government. So if you hover on this government segment, you can see the value showing on the government segment. So since it's filtered for only that particular one, I can come here and just decide to change it to government. Let's just allow it to show the highest cells for that particular segment. Okay, so that's that. I can just copy this, copy and paste. I'm just going to copy this and paste because I want to create another visual. So I want to create something similar, but this time around we're going to use the discount band to create this. I'll turn on the category label right here. I'm using the discount band to create this. So for this, I'm going to turn off the segment and turn on the discount band. Once I turn on the discount band, this is what is going to show. And I'm also going to copy this card visual and bring it down here. So for this particular card visual, let me turn off the background. For this particular card visual, we're going to turn off this filter for segments, and I'm going to bring discount band because it's discount band I want to filter here. So I'm going to use the top end, and that's going to be the top one discount band. I'll apply the filter and it's showing 39. If you look at this particular donut chart, if you hover on it, you can see the top discount band, which is actually medium. Medium is actually the highest discount band. So we will also format this. So for this particular discount band, we're just going to give it the name medium, and then we'll press enter. So that is it. I'm going to turn off this. I'm going to turn off the background for this as well, and also reduce this. So I want it to be the same size. So basically, this is how you can create these two donut charts with a card visual right in it. So the next thing I'm going to create is a waterfall chart. So this waterfall chart is going to show us the running total of the sales across each month. So what we're going to do is to go to our visuals and click on the waterfall chart. So this is our waterfall chart here. I'm going to bring it right down to this point. So this is the waterfall chart. I'll drag it to this point. So for this waterfall chart here, the category here is going to be our month. So I'm going to use the month name for the category, and the y-axis is going to be our sales. So I'm just going to drag these cells to the field well here, which is in the y-axis, and this is what is showing. So I can just quickly go to these columns, and then I'm going to use this color for all of this chart. I will also add data labels to them. I'll also add data labels to it. So you can see that our month is not properly formatted. Let me turn off this filter. Our month is not properly formatted. So what we can do is just to click on the month name. Just click on the month name, come to column tools, click on sort by, and use the month number to sort by it. So after sorting it, I'm just going to click on more options, and we're going to sort this axis by the month name. So when we sort this axis by the month name, we'll sort it in ascending order. So you can see it now starts from January, February, March, and the rest of it. So for this x-axis, I can just turn off the title, and of course, I can also turn off the legend for this, and change the title of this to sales by month name. So you can give it any other name that you want to give. So basically, this is how you can create waterfall charts to show running totals of sales across maybe months, years, or even weeks. So another thing we're going to do is to quickly add a dynamic slicer. So I'm going to add a dynamic slicer to my month here. So I have what I call the play axis. This play axis is a custom visual. Okay, so if you want to import a custom visual to your Power BI report, just click on these three ellipses where you see get more visuals, and once you click on it, once you click on the get more visual, is going to that you have to be connected to the internet, and also you should have a Power BI service account. It will open a marketplace where you can import the visual and use. If you want to continue using the visual, you can always pin it to your visualization pane. If not, it will only be available for the current report you're working on. So I have what I call the play axis. I'm going to include this play axis to my report here. So I'm just going to drag this play axis down to this point. After dragging it down to this point, I'm going to add the month's name, because it's the month's name I want to add as my field data. So I've added the month's name right there. So you can see that the month's name is showing. I'm going to turn off the caption, and the title, I can just type and say, click to see monthly sales progression. So that's it for that. And of course, these have colors too. I can come here, and the default color is black. I can decide to show all colors. If I show all colors, these are the colors that are displayed right here. So you can decide to change the colors, at least just to match with the color of what you have within your report. Okay, so that is it. I'm just going to give them some darker shade, and basically this is how the colors are. So after doing all of this, I can just turn off that color. And for the animation setting, you can decide to loop it depending on what you want for your report and how you want your report stakeholders to view this report. So I'm just going to bring this up here, and this is how this filter works. So if I want to see the monthly sales for all of it, instead of using the normal slicer that I have to select month after month, I can just click here on play. Once I click on play, it will start to show me the monthly progression, the sales for each of this month. So this is how it's going to show. It's going to show the month. So you can either, so if I start to play now, and it starts showing me the monthly sale, I can either pause to check the sales for the month and of course the progression. So you can also disable filters for some of these other visuals and allow this visual to show for only the one you want it to show. If you decide to stop it now, it will take you back to the original report. But if you were playing it, you can either pause. Once you pause, you can go to the previous month or you go to the next month. So this is basically how this dynamic filter works. Let me just go and turn off the background as well for this dynamic filter. So basically that is how it works, and you can decide to add it to your report. So we are going to create slicers for this particular visual as well. So the first slicer I'm going to create, I'm going to use our old slicer, and I'm going to add products to it. This product, I'm going to remove the background. I'm just going to scroll down, and the slicer settings, I want it to be a drop down. For the slicer header, I'm just going to drag it down to this point and give it a font color of white. Oh, I didn't bring it up to this point. Let me bring it here. So this is my slicer. Let's go to values. That's where we need to add the background and the color. So for the background of the values, we're going to give it this background, and if you hover on it, you can see that it's showing for you to select anything that you want to select. So basically this is how I want this slicer to look like. I'm going to copy and paste 2 times because I need to create 2 more slicers. I'll create slicers for discount band and also create slicers for the country. So for this second slicer, we're going to add the country to it, and I'm going to remove the product. And this third slicer, we're going to add the discount band, and I'm going to remove the product. So this is only for discount band, this is only for country, and the other one is only for the product. So we're done with our slicers for now. The next thing we're going to do is to insert buttons for our navigation. So we're going to create 2 pages, but we want to navigate to another page with the help of a button. So what I'm going to do is I'll click on Insert tab, and I'll come over to Button and scroll down to select Blank. So I'm going to select Blank button. Okay, I'll just drag this blank button down here. Yes, I'll just keep it somewhere around there. So this is the blank button. I'll come over to the button style, and I'm going to change the shape of this button to a rounded rectangle, and I'm going to give it 13%. So this is how the button should look like. Okay, so right on this button, I'm just going to click on it, and I'll scroll down to other parts of the button. So when you see icon, this icon is already on. So what I'm going to do for this icon is that I'm going to insert a custom icon. So the icon type is going to be custom. So once I activate the custom icon, it gives me an option to insert my own image. So what I'm going to do is to select browse, and once I select browse, I want to use this symbol or icon. So I'm going to insert that. Once I insert that, I'm going to change this to fit into that particular button. So that is it for the button. And another thing I'm going to do is, let me close this icon. I'll just come over. The borders are already turned off. So basically, this is how the button is. So once you see this, you know that it is a button. So what I can do is to quickly select this button, copy and paste, because I want to create 2 buttons right at that point. So this second button, I'll just come over to, since they have the same settings, the only thing I need to change is the icon. So I'm going to select off the icon, then click to add another icon. Then I want to add this particular icon that shows countries. So that is the icon. I can change it to fit to this particular button. So the next button I'm going to create is a Clear All Slicers button. I'll just copy and paste this button again and just bring it down. So this one is not a navigation button, it's just to help us clear all the slicers in case there are hidden filters in your report. So once I click on this, I'll just come over to this button style and just scroll down where I go over to where I have this icon. So I'm just going to remove this image from there, and remember the icon type was custom, so I'm going to change it from custom to Clear All Slicers button. So I'm going to include add Clear All Slicers button. So once I change it to Clear All Slicers button, you can see now that this particular icon has this eraser button that shows you that that is Clear All Slicers. You can add a line color to this button to give you the same color like the other ones. So the inbuilt buttons here, you can always change the line color, but if you are importing images from or icons from the internet, you have to format it, you have to give it the color that matches with the projects that you're working on. So the next thing I'll do is to open my bookmarks. So I'm just going to open the bookmarks pane right here, and I'm going to open my selection pane as well. So this button, I'm just going to click on this button. So anything you select right on this particular selection pane is going to show, is going to select here, because everything you see on the selection pane is what you have on your current reports. Okay, so that is this Clear All Slicers button. We don't have anything to do with that. That one is going to stay. So this other button is the regions button. So I'm going to rename it by double clicking. I'll just type inactive region. So you can just give it a name that you can easily understand since you want to work on it. So I'll give it the name inactive region. Then for this other button, I'll just give it the name. I'll double click and give it the name inactive cells. So I'm giving it inactive because by default I want this page to show like this. It is only when it's selected it should show that something is being selected. So in order to create navigations with all these icons here, what I will do is I'll click on that icon, I'll copy it, then I'll paste it. So now I have two icons. So I'm going to overlay this second icon right directly on top of the other ones. So you can see that this new icon I've copied and pasted. I'm pasting it, I'm overlaying it on the first one. So it's still bearing inactive cells. I'm going to change this name to active cells because I want this one to be active. So I'm going to change it to active cells. And after changing the name to active cells, I'll come over to the button style, and by default I want it to have a fill color. So I'm going to turn on the fill, and then for the color I'm going to select this blue color. So for the color I'm going to select that particular blue color, and of course for the icon type I'm going to remove that particular icon type. Then I'll bring in the white version of that same icon. I'm going to select this one and click to open. So once I click to open, I'll just make it to fit normally on it. So for this fill color, let's come back to the fill. I think it has a transparency, so I'm going to turn off the transparency. And once I turn off the transparency, you can see what this color looks like. So whenever it's active, I want it to have this. So this is what should happen. I've created for active cells. So let me create for the active region. So we'll format them all together. I'll copy and paste. So after pasting, I'll make sure that it is directly on top of that inactive region. Then I'll come over to here. So I'll just change the name here at once. I'll call it active region. After changing the name, I'll come over to this point and then turn this off. Then I'll bring in the other version of this particular icon. So once I bring that in, I'm going to fit in to that point. Then I'll go over to fill, and then I'm going to fill this color with blue, turn off the transparency, and this is how it looks like. This is how both of them looks like. So we have active region and active cells, and we have inactive region and inactive cells. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to group all of these visuals here. I'm going to group all the visuals that should appear in my cells analysis. Okay, I'm going to just group all of them at once. Before I group them, let me quickly copy this text, because we need the text as either for regional performance. It's only that the text will be different. So I'm just going to copy it. So I've copied it to my clipboard. So right now what I will do is to select all of this. So I'm going to select everything here. I'll start with my new card. So I'm going to select that card. I'll press my Control key and hold. I'm going to select my two text box, and I'm going to select this. I'll select the shape, select this. So as I'm selecting, you're seeing that it's selecting on the report. So I'm going to select everything that has to do with this sales page. So I'm going to select all of this. The slicers will stay because I want the slicers to remain for the two pages. I want the two pages to have the same slicers. So the slicers will actually stay. And let me click this button. Okay, this button is the clear all slicers button, so I'm not going to group that one. So for these ones I've selected, I'm just going to right click on it and click group. So once I group it, all of them have been grouped together, and I can just rename it to say sales analysis. So I can rename it to be a sales analysis page. So that's sales analysis. Then I'll quickly come here to add a bookmark. So my first bookmark is going to be sales analysis. So this is going to be my first bookmark. It's going to be sales analysis page. Okay, so my sales analysis should have all of this. So I'll quickly come and update the current state of this report. So what I'll also do for this sales analysis is that for this inactive cells, I'm going to select inactive cell. Please just watch closely what I'm doing. I'm going to select inactive cells, and under the format button, this inactive cells is the button here. So this button is being selected. Once I select that, I'll now scroll down to give it an action. So I'm going to give it an action of bookmark. So I'm going to turn on this action and then give it an action of bookmark. So I'll give it this bookmark action, and the bookmark should take us to sales analysis page. Okay, the bookmark should take us to sales analysis page. So once the bookmark takes us to sales analysis page, we don't want to see the inactive sales button again. So I'm going to turn this off. Okay, I'm going to turn this off. In a very short while, I'm going to show you how all of this is going to play out. So right now, what I can do is I'm going to add another bookmark. I'll call this region. So I'm going to call this bookmark region. So this bookmark that is called region, I'm going to turn off the sales analysis. Remember that I grouped everything together. So as I've turned off this sales analysis page, sales analysis group, the group of visuals that make up sales analysis page, as I've turned it off, so it's not going to show in region. And right now, when region 2 is selected, I don't want the active cells to be selected. So I'm going to hide the active cell and bring back the inactive cell. So first off, I'll just collapse all of this and create the region page. So you see what we have in the region page. So the first thing I'm going to do for the region page, I'm going to add a card visual. Okay, we're going to add the text first. So I'm going to paste the text. Remember, I copied the text from the other page. I had to copy it because after grouping it and hiding that particular group, you're not going to see those visuals any longer. So I'm going to say regional performance. So I'll type regional performance and I'll just expand this. Okay, so that's regional performance, and I'm also going to edit this text to say this report shows a summary of the, so we'll remove the sales and financial to replace it with regional. So that is it for this particular one. So the next thing I'm going to do is to insert a shape. So I'm going to insert a rectangle shape here. I'll bring the shape over here and drag it down. So I'm going to do this, just drag this shape down to this point. And okay, so this is okay. For the shape style, I'm going to turn on the fill color, but I'm going to change it to white. We need it as a white color. Then I'm going to turn off the border. Okay, so this is basically how our regional page is going to look like. We'll start adding our visuals. The first visual we're going to add is a card visual. I'm just going to add this new card visual, and I'm going to drag it and bring it down here. So this visual is going to hold the number of countries. So I'm going to impute countries here and then change this aggregation to count distinct. So it should show us the number of countries that we have. So that's the number of countries. We'll go to the callout values, and then for the callout values, the callout value is okay. After selecting the callout value, we'll align it to the center and then scroll over to the label. This is what we need to do. So under this callout values, since we are using the new card visual, I have to select this count of country for it to show the label. So once I go over to the label, there's an option for me to change the text. So I'm just going to change it to number of countries. So these are the number of countries in this particular data set. So I'll do this and then I'll just make it bold for the number of countries. I can change this to 14. So that is it for our number of countries. Then I'll scroll down to where I have the cards and give it an accent bar. So I'll just scroll down here and change the color. So let's change the color to our default color. Then you can increase the width. So this is it for our card visual. This is what our card visual looks like. I can drag it down a bit and maybe decide to readjust it as I want. So I'll quickly copy this card visual because I want it to have the same settings. So I'll place it right here. But this card visual is going to have a different, this particular card visual is going to have a different data. So I'm going to turn off this data here. Then I'll bring in country to this particular data. I'll bring country to this particular data and I'll open the filter pane. Once I open this filter pane, I'm going to drag this country down to these filters. You know why? Because once you put a text into a card visual, it's going to show the first text or the last text, so we cannot filter directly. So I have to take the country column down to the filters pane in order for me to filter that particular card. So right here I brought in the country, so I can go to filtering and then use top N. So for top N, we want to see the top one. We want to see the most profitable country. So I'm going to use profit, sum of profit, and apply this filter. So once this filter is applied, you can see that France is the most profitable country there. So I can come over to the callout values and select that first country. So we'll be able to edit our label text. So right here, I can type most profitable country. I'll type most profitable country. So that is our text, and I'll make it 14 and of course make it bold. So France is the most profitable country. The next visual we're going to add is an AI visual. So and it's called Decomposition Tree. So this is just going to show the cells decomposition. So this decomposition, I'm going to show the cells by the country and the product. So I'm just going to place this here. I'll place this here and we adjust it. So I'm going to just try to align it with the other visual. So what I'll do first, under the analyze, so we want to analyze cells. So I'm going to bring cells to analyze, and we want to explain by country and also explain by product. So once you add the data, this is what it will show. It's showing the sum of cells only. So I can change the name of this to total cells. So that's for the total cells. In order for you to see the cells decomposition by the country, you have to click this plus sign. So you can either split by high value, low value, or with the country and the products that you want. So I'm just going to select country, and once I select country, you can see that the cells has been listed by the different countries. Okay, so if I want to go to the next level, I can just click on this plus sign to split, and I can go to products, and it's just going to show me the cells by product. So if you notice from this decomposition tree, let me turn this off. So if you notice from this decomposition tree right here, these products are for only this country. So if you need to see for other countries, you just select on the country. You see the product sales for only that particular country. If you click on the next one, you see sales for only that country. So you can keep selecting like that. And if you want to remove any of these levels from this particular visual, you can always remove it from this particular button, this X button here. So this is our cells decomposition. I'll just come back and click on format. So we add a title to this. So the visual title is going to be cells decomposition. Then the next visual we're going to add is a map visual. So before we add a map visual, we're just going to change this country category. So I'll just select on country and select it and choose country. Once I change the data category to country, you can see this world visual right here on this country. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add a map visual. So I'm going to click on this map and I'm going to drag it down to this point. So I'll bring it down here. So for this map visual, we want to look at the cells by country. So I'm going to include the cells. I'll just include the cells and of course the country. So the country is going to the location and the cells will go to the bubble. So right now our country and the cells are showing. So what I can do is to go to these bubbles and increase the size of the bubbles. Maybe we'll make it 11. And I'm going to remove the background. So for the colors of these bubbles, you can decide to show all the colors, at least to differentiate the bubbles for the different countries. So you can decide to choose different colors for this, or you can just decide to use any other color. So after giving those bubbles some colors, so that is it for our map visual. The next thing we are going to create is a table matrix. So I'm going to click on this build a visual and click on matrix visual. So I'm going to bring it down here. I'll readjust this to this point and I'll just readjust it to fit into the page. So we'll bring it down and then we'll go ahead to add the columns that we need to add in our rows. For the rows, we have to add the country and the product. So I'll bring the country to this field world and I'll also bring the product to this rows. Then the other parts, which is our values, is going to be cells. So cells will go for our values. We will also have discounts included in this particular table. So we'll include discounts. We will include profit and then profit margin. So I'm going to bring down the profit here. And for our profit margin, remember it's part of our matrix. So I'm going to open it and bring the profit margin to this point. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So we can just come here and expand this data. We'll just keep expanding them because we want it to show in expanded form. So basically this is how it should be. So we'll go over to the style preset and we'll change it from the default to minimal. Let's just leave it like this. We'll change it from default to minimal. And after this, we can also increase the font size of these particular values. So I can come to the values and maybe increase them to 12. So this is the font size. This is how it should be. Then for our cells, for some of cells, we want to add conditional formatting to it. I'm going to scroll down to cell elements and I'm going to choose the series, which is sum of cells. For that sum of cells, we want to include icons. So those icons are going to show if they are increasing or if they are reducing. So you can change these icons. You can change and select any other combination of icons. So if you click on this FX, it's going to show you different styles of icon that you can choose from. So you can choose any one of these icons. Okay, you can choose any one of these icons that you want to use. So I can even choose this particular set of icons and then say okay. So my icons is just going to change and switch to those particular icons. Then for my profit margin, I'm going to change the series now to profit margin. For profit margins, I want to include data bars. So I'm going to turn on data bars and I'm going to turn on FX. For the data bars, my positive values, I want them to have a green color. So I'm going to select this and give them a green color. So that is it for my data bars. Okay, so the color has changed to green and this is the green color. So right now, another thing I can do to my table is to change the column headers. We'll just increase the values of the column header. So for the column headers, we'll give it 12 and of course make it bold. So that is it for our column headers, and I'm going to give it a title. So this title, I'll type breakdown of sales, discounts, profits, and profit margin by country. So that is it for our table visual. Then we can decide to add a text box to give a little summary of what is in that table, or basically what we have on this whole page. So if I include this text box now, I'll just bring this text box down here. So I have some text I want to include right here. I've typed this text already, so I'll just bring it down to this point. Let me just reduce it a bit. So this is just like a little summary. So what the summary is basically saying is that the company cut across 3 regions in North America and 2 countries in Europe. Of course, you see these are the 2 countries in Europe, France and Germany, and there are 3 countries in North America, which is Canada, United States, and Mexico. So that makes it a total of 5 countries in this particular report. And if you look at this particular table, France is the most profitable country. Even from this card, France is the most profitable country with a margin of 16%. So if you look at France, it has a profit margin of 16%, and the difference is like 2% difference from Canada, which has the highest sales. So for this particular data set, Canada has the highest sales for this particular data, but if you look at it closely, you see that France is more profitable than Canada, that has the highest sales with 2% difference. So with little text like this, you can actually add very insightful summaries about your report. Okay, so we're done with creating the regional performance. So let's go back to our icons. Right now, I'll click back on View tab. Okay, I'll just come here and bring back our bookmarks. So once I bring back our bookmarks, I have to bring our selection pane, because it's the selection pane that shows everything that is here. So right now we'll also group everything that has to do with region together. So what we will do is I'm going to select everything that has to do with region. I'll select it. As you're selecting, you can see that it's selecting on the report itself. So I'll select every single thing that has to do with region right here. So this text box too has to do with region, and this has to do with region. So we're going to group this together. I'm going to group this and call them region. So after grouping it, I'll rename it and call it region. So I've called it region now, and I'm going to update this region. So I'm going to update the current state of this report right now. But for this particular region, remember we have active region button and inactive region button. So I'm going to select the inactive region button because we've created page for the region already. I'm going to select the inactive region button. Once I select that, under the formatting, okay, I've not selected it yet. Once I select inactive region button, how to format the format button pane shows up, and I'm going to give it an action. So the action I want it to have is a bookmark, and for this bookmark we are going to select our region. So this is how it's going to be. The inactive region will take us to the region page, but when it comes to the region page, the inactive button will be turned off. So I'm going to update this particular page right now. So right on this bookmarks pane, I'm going to select sales analysis. So clicking back on sales analysis right now, the region page is showing. So I'm going to turn off the region group and then select the sales analysis group. And under the sales analysis group, this is what should show in our sales analysis when we click to open it. So I'm going to update this. Then once I'm done updating that, I'll click on region. Once I click on region, I'm going to bring back the region group, and of course everything is in order. So I'm just going to select this and update. So basically this is how this works, I'm going to turn off all of this particular. I'm going to turn off all this pane. So this is how it works. Once you select the region page, it should show that this region is selected. And if I click here, so right now, since I'm on Power BI desktop, I have to click Control plus this link. But once you upload it to your Power BI service, just click the link and it will take you to the next page. But if I click on this inactive cells icon now, if I click Control and click on it, it takes me to the cells page, and you see that it has shown the active cells icon. So it's showing that the cells analysis page is active at this point. If I click on region here, if I click to go to region, it takes me to the next page of our reports in region. So with bookmarks, you can see that with only one page, we've created 2 different pages. So sometimes you can create up to 3, 4 different pages depending on the nature of report you're creating. And of course, you have to always create your report and tailor it to your the experience of your stakeholders. So with bookmarks, you can create amazing reports like this, and with just certain links, you go to the next report. So this is how you can create a very great sales analysis report, and you can use different features of Power BI. You can use certain features to achieve a lot of things. Okay, thank you so much guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something and you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did creating it. Thank you so much.